Rookie forward Angel Reese was ejected from the game last night, the New York Liberty, after drawing consecutive technical fouls.
A suspended Angel Reese. Not for harm, not for drama off the court. However, it was her 8th technical foul of the year. 8 technicians and she's gone. The league has a straightforward rule. You sit if you cross that boundary. Additionally, the most divisive young player in the league is currently watching from the sidelines. To be sure, Reese has always had a fiery style. We have witnessed her stare downs. She has trash talked to us. She has pushed the envelope. However, this was the tipping point. With one more whistle, a tense season that was already boiling over, and suddenly she's in the news once more.
Thinking she's LeBron James, thinking that she's, Kevin Durant, thinking she's James Harden, thinking that, after 2 seasons in the WNBA, she's some sort of commodity that has to be surrounded by the best and greatest players. Thinking she's LeBron James, thinking that she's, Kevin Durant, thinking she's James Harden, thinking that, after 2 seasons in the WNBA, she's some sort of commodity that has to be surrounded by the best.
It's not just another foul call either. This seems larger. When you look at Angel Reese, you see a player fighting an entire narrative rather than simply a player battling referees. The terms villain and out of control are the tags. In the WNBA, you are automatically suspended after 8 technical fouls. No appeals, no flexibility. There are no questions, just a 1-game punishment. Following the Sky's match against the Connecticut Sun, Reese reached that figure. But you see, emotion plays a factor in Reese's game. She was a star at LSU because of that edge. Her dominance in the suffering is fueled by it. The issue is that you get suspensions when that feeling goes too far. Distractions come up. You are questioned about whether she is a liability or a leader. Therefore, the suspension wasn't merely a formality. Rather, it was a moment that brought her entire reputation back into the public eye. And rather than calming the storm, she made it worse. This is where the situation deteriorated. Reese sat down for an interview following the announcement of her suspension and the loss. She went all out and included her teammates in it rather than keeping it to herself.
Her coaching staff buried her teammates, buried, the moves that were made for the front office and just the general idea of the organization itself, the moves that need to be made. Now, a lot of us have.
The Sky can't be content with the same roster, she remarked. She demanded that free agency include great players. She made a suggestion that the only certain returners are herself and Camilla Cardoso. The statement on Courtney Vandersloot, one of the most well-known figures in the franchise, followed. In essence, Reese stated that at her age, the club couldn't count on her to recover from her injuries. You see, that struck hard. Vandersloot suffered an ACL tear. She is a legendary figure in the Sky. And to learn that a player in her 2nd year is already elevating herself above her teammates, some were offended by that. Fans viewed it as conceit, and the media went wild with it. It has been reported that even her teammates weren't pleased.
I don't think I'm frustrated. I probably am frustrated myself right now. I think the language is taken out of context, and I really didn't intentionally mean to put down my teammates because they've been through this with me throughout the whole year. They've busted their ass just how I busted my ass. They showed up for me through thick and thin and in the locker room when nobody could see anything. So I would apologize to my teammates, which I already have, about the article and how it was misconstrued, about what was said. And I just have to be better with my language because I know it's not the message, it's the messenger, and understanding what I say can be taken.
Later, Reese expressed regret. She informed reporters that what she had said had been taken out of context. She said that she didn't intend to disparage her comrades, but the harm was already done. The phrases were already visible in the changing room. That sting has already been experienced by them. Furthermore, a public split was the last thing the Sky needed during a season in which they are missing the playoffs. Actually, this is the point at which perception turns into reality. Even if Reese may have intended to demand accountability, it came across as self-serving. It sounded as if she was discrediting her teammates rather than encouraging them. Or perhaps she wants to quit.
That Angel Reese wants out of Chicago. She's a front runner. She's going to, I said this very early in this season, she's going to be looking to exit the Chicago sky. The going has gotten tough. And when the going gets tough, Angel Reese gets going, just ask Maryland.
And that type of leadership is quickly called into question in athletics. When the news broke of Angel Reese's suspension, Stephen A. Smith didn't mince words. Angel Reese is an absolute star, he said bluntly. However, she isn't yet Caitlin Clark. He drew attention to how swiftly the league disciplined her. But Clark maintained her brilliance despite everything. She mentioned that people aren't only keeping an eye on Clark, but also on her. And she was expelled a few weeks later. That cannot be made up.
She ain't the only one everybody's watching. They're watching me too. They're watching others. A day later, she gets ejected. I ask a simple question. I don't have an answer. I'm not pretending to have an answer. I'm not going to give you an answer. I'm going to ask you a simple question. If that's Caitlin Clark, does she get ejected from that game?
The media set up a trap for Reese, and she has fallen right into it. You see, Stephen relied on the fairness versus reality perspective as well. Does Caitlin Clark get thrown out if that was her? No, you all know better too. That's his way of expressing that while the whistle is different, the rules might be the same. Everyone is aware of the golden goose, whom the league guards. That same shield is not given to Reese.
Was that Caitlin Clark's the golden goose? She happens to be a terrific talent who's white and very, very marketable. The combination of the two things.
However, this is when he criticized her choices. It's not fair, he said. Fair, however, is a location where pigs are judged. Clark is the golden goose in actuality. You don't bite the hand that provides the league with sustenance. Stephen was really clear. If Reese continues to struggle with the business aspect of the game rather than playing it strategically, she will lose. Stephen, however, acknowledged her talent. The girl can play, he said. She has star power, is physical, and is unrelenting. However, people will start talking about your techs instead of your buckets if your theatrics begin to dominate your game. Only he can convey that kind of raw honesty. Therefore, he sees Angel Reese as torn between his image and reality. The WNBA won't give in to her pressure, even though she has what it takes to be a force there. She either adjusts, or she continues to be seen as the bad girl who lacks self-control.
And her delusion that we should not be surprised by, because the way she's talked about, the way she's discussed, the way that Ryan Clark and all these other people cape up for Angel Reese and pretend like she's the greatest thing since sliced bread, she's leaned into her delusion. She wants everybody out of here. Do we have the quote where she...
Additionally, Jason Whitlock approached it more harshly. He was blunt in his criticism. Angel Reese was deemed immature by him. He claimed that she was more interested in sound bites than in basketball, and more dramatized than disciplined. Whitlock contended that her brand is gradually moving away from her true game. The headlines focus on techs, ejections, and interviews in which she disparages her teammates, rather than rebounds and victories. That is a risky course of action. While the attention may feel wonderful at the moment, it will damage her reputation in the long run. In retrospect, Whitlock's main argument concerned image. He believes that the league will gladly make Reese the antagonist next to Caitlin Clark. Clark is the golden goose, the record breaker, the girl next door, and the WNBA's safe face. Reese is positioned as the antithesis. Whitlock warned that she would be irrevocably stuck in that role if she continued to give them ammunition with her words and deeds. And it's no longer just basketball. It goes beyond that. In her back and forth with Stephen, Monica McNutt mentioned it. The media's portrayal of Clark and Reese is completely different. Clark is portrayed as the one who is attacked, the victim, and the bright spot that shines through everything. Reese is portrayed as the antagonist, the noisy one, the bully, and the troublemaker.
Right? It's easy to see that Caitlyn is usually portrayed as the victim and Angel is usually portrayed as the villain, and that is rooted in my observation. Somebody can tell me I'm wrong, but it is rooted in my observation in the racial identity of these women and where.
The issue is that the narrative supports racial overtones that are amplified by the media and fans. On the court, Reese is a black woman who is vocal and expressive. A white woman, Clark, is more reserved and concentrated on her play. Even if it is unfair, the media can easily take advantage of the disparity, and this dynamic is weaponized by fans. Fans of Clark will gesture to Reese's technicians and remark, "See, unmanageable." Fans of Reese retort that Clark is given calls and protected. It produces a rift that hurts both players' real careers while fostering clicks. Then there are the actions of the fans. The WNBA was already required to look into nasty comments made about Reese. That goes beyond competition and into danger. Stephen even went so far as to say that Reese shouldn't have to put up with disrespect the way Clark never does. This goes beyond basketball. It's about how supporters believe they have the right to take sides and harass players with negative vibes. Here's the business reality, though. Everyone was reminded by Stephen A. that Caitlyn Clark is equivalent to record ratings. She is the one who attracts sponsors, drives TV numbers, and sells out arenas.
That it has granted the WNBA. Look at the record ratings they've produced because of her arrival. Once upon a time, they were watching about the audience in Indiana for Indiana Fever games was at about 4,000. Now it's at about 16 to 17,000. The ratings for the WNBA draft was 2.446 million, which was the largest in WNBA history. The doubleheader that opened the season generated over 1.5 million viewers, which was more than the WNBA had accumulated in more than 2 decades. You have all of this stuff going on. Understand, Caitlyn Clark is different.
She is viewed by the league as the key to expansion. Reese? Although she is also a star, she doesn't have that much business clout. If Clark rises, so does the league, and Angel stands to gain if she chooses to ride that wave. She will perish, though, if she battles the tide. The harsh reality is that Clark is currently untouchable, and Reese must choose to accept or reject this fact. Reese thus contributes to the plot that is already waiting for her when she adopts the villain persona by accusing teammates, stacking texts, and making headlines. And it's nearly impossible to get rid of that villain stereotype once it becomes ingrained. A villain is indeed necessary for any great pod. However, what happens if being the villain becomes your career rather than just a plot point? The tension that looms over Angel Reese is that. Consider the pattern. Texts are accumulating, disputes with the referees, looking down on rivals, then the interviews in which she presents herself as the Sky's future rather than encouraging her teammates. Although it's audacious, it reinforces the idea that she is self-centered. This is where the dressing room is useful. According to reports, Reese's teammates weren't pleased with her remarks. To address it, the group had to call a meeting. That is genuine conflict among the squad, not just media fluff. Yes, there is still support for Reese. Following her most recent dismissal, Lonzo Ball even volunteered to pay her fine. That demonstrates that she is not alone. Her fire is respected. However, patience is short-lived. When will her teammates and supporters begin to wonder if she's worth the trouble if she continues to receive suspensions and her name is constantly in the news? The danger is clear. Your influence ends the moment the locker room perceives you as a diversion rather than a leader. And you will never receive the same protection or recognition as the opposing hero once the league views you as the villain they can promote. Angel Reese must make a decision. Will she continue to play into the villain versus hero narrative, or will she change the course and make the league focus on her game rather than her techs? Because everything else is currently being absorbed by the evil character. The question is now, does Angel Reese intensify her role as the antagonist, or does she go the other way and demonstrate that her game is more powerful than her techs? What are your thoughts? Thank you for viewing.